still on the matter of leadership, looking at the royal institution being one of the, I should say, oldest form of governance that existed. In this day and time, do you think the royal system is necessary?
The royal system is the foundations of life. The royal institution, if you look at the original design of what it means to be of royalty and monarchy, you understand, how entrenched we are into the very fabric of society. Because in a lot of places in the world, what makes the royalty what it is the pioneering people that walked into a new land. And obviously, they were the ones that began to shape the architecture of that original place. They are the foundations of that place. So like we say, if the foundation is destroyed, what can anybody do? So if you take out the very foundations of the covenants, of the conversation, of the identity, and the architecture of the original people, then what do you have? You have a people who have a history that is fractured, and you have a people who their culture and their language and who they are is disfragmented. And once you have that issue, you have identity crisis. And once you have identity crisis, you have dysfunction. And once you have dysfunction, you will never be all that God created you to be. So the conversation on ground here is that we are dealing with, the originality of how people have structured their entire life in governance. And governance is such a key and the center of civilization. You can't remove governance. So we can't be talking about if the royal institution is relevant. You can see the way kings, monarchy all over Africa are still being revered, respected. When the king still talks, there's a lot of, the king has said this culture, this tradition, we're doing this and all that and everything. I think where Africa missed it basically was throwing away the baby with the bathwater. Some of the things they felt were excesses of the royal, institution over time, and not allowing us to create a system that works uniquely for Africa, where we can integrate newer development in governance in the context of the royal institution, like we see has happened in the UK and a lot of monarchy in Europe, where the queen is still the queen, the king is still the king, and this is the role they play in development and everything. But then they've also allowed a democracy kind of stuff, to be able to exist side by side, so that the two people are bringing the realities and their uniqueness to the development of the people. So I think that if you look at issues of security, if you look at issue of integration, ethnic integration, if you look at issues of wealth creation and ecosystems of securities, it is the kings and the royal institution that guarantees those things. So a lot of times you find the government struggling, trying to implement laws, ideas without going through trying to alienate the royal institution. You find that issues of security is local to people, and you find ballets and you find kings and other forms of royalty, whatever the system, who are integrated on how things are done, people who have the history. So when you are trying to implement things and you don't know the history of the people, when you are trying to bring laws and stuff and you don't know what are the taboos of the people, so you are finding out that a lot of things are being done haphazardly, because the government is consistently bypassing governance at the grassroots. Development can't be development until it trickles down to the grassroots. It's the royal institutions that run the grassroots. We're the ones that know the grassroots. We're the ones that know the people. We're the ones that know the history. We're the one that knows the land. We're the ones that know stuff. So there's no way you can development, security, growth, capacity building can trickle down to the barest minimum level with you bypassing the royal institution. So you need us, because we're there, and we're basically a very important narrative to governance and implementation in people. So you find out that the issue there is, once you try to bypass that, you will have issues. Why? Because we're the ones closest to the people you are trying to govern.
So the problem will now be looking at the way the current system is running. People usually come to the royal institution, the royal stool, during campaign. As a matter of fact, it's still in the news. Recently, there's been a case where a very prestigious stool, a very prestigious title was enthroned, and the people who should be the kingmaker almost went on a protest. In fact, there were threats on going on protests. You know what I'm talking about. And the point is, at what point and what can be done? Because it seems like the political arm is really infiltrating and taking over even the places that they were meant to submit to in a way. Because, yes, some of them bow. We see pictures, we see videos of some of them bowing down, lying prostrate during campaign. And then when they go in, they know they have 4 years, maximum 8 years. And then they use that time to destabilize the royal institution. And then maybe sometimes put somebody who, in quote and unquote, should not be there. So what then happened to that institution? Do you not think if this continue, it's likely, it is already affecting, it's likely to destroy the very fabric of what you have just said and the relevance you have just pointed out as to the royal institution? And what can be done, what should be done to be able to curb some of these excesses on the path of the political leaders?
One of the reasons why I recently set up the Omooba Deji Heritage Foundation, was to be able to tackle some of these conversations in terms of looking at the context in how you are looking at it. Now, the two organizations, the two sides need to be reformed. The politicians need to understand that you don't overstep some bounds. And the royal institution needs to understand that we are fathers of a people. And so as a father of a people, the overall well-being, development and growth of your children is your responsibility. You don't go to sleep when your children are hungry.
Yeah.
And you don't go to sleep when your children are exposed. So the royal institution, with all due respect, needs to reform itself and take itself back to that place of honor and respect that we used to have. And we can do that in terms of, agreeing with one voice that we will speak to government and we will sponsor, bills, speaking to our senators, our House of Rep, and let them know that this issue of constitutional roles is the way this matter can be solved. Because you can't attempt to strip us of all power and then use us and take advantage of us. It's not the way it's done. So we ourselves also has to go back into our, the drawing board and to bring back credible people, bring back, the royal institution seeing itself as a major stakeholder in development, in growth, not only at the grassroots, but at every level in terms of, wealth creation, communal, development and integration. And when we see the way, some of the examples we had in the past and the kind of roles they played, we will realize that, for example, you have, somebody like, the former Oni of Ife, Deji Aderemi, also being the premier of the Western region. The Oba Kinyele of Ibadan was also, a minister without portfolio, to let you know how respected they were, not only as royalty, but also found their way into governance. So if we begin to have, sons of the soil, from royal families who have a burden for their people, the way they will approach things will be differently. And so it will not just be an issue of you asking to be honored. You need to bring yourself to the table. And that's what I advocate with the foundation we just set up. The royal institution should stop asking for permission. We need to sit down and begin to make things happen. That's why I'm proud of what one of our monarchs is doing in the Niger Delta, the Olowo of Warri. He's literally redefined, what royalty should be. I mean, he's not listening to this is the limit or these are areas that royalty should step into. You literally find him, championing the cause of his people, traveling globally, looking for investments, looking for conversations, sitting down with his people and seeking their development. That's how every royal stool in Nigeria should be thinking and should be doing. And that's why we have children both locally and in the diaspora. And once they know that they have a monarch and a leader who listens and wants to lead, we will galvanize people. People will come together. And that's why you see even the Shaun of Ogbomoso is doing an amazing thing in the how many years that he's been there now, looking at the carnivals and looking at, I was recently with him, in the Ogbomoso Economic Summit just a few weeks ago, bringing his people together, looking at, the cashew they have, the oranges and the possibilities. And you have world-class leaders there sitting down and say, how do we make this an ecosystem of agriculture, and even the value chain of our cashew alone is able to take us to dimensions. Now, when you have that kind of monarchy on the true, government will reposition how they are relating with you.
True.
Yeah, so once you have more monarchs come like that, the political will begin to adjust. And then I also believe that, the political people should see us as partners of progress. The fact that we are autonomous and we are independent does not mean that, we want to fight your government. We are not supposed to be partisan. Kings are not supposed to pick any side. Everybody is your child. Everybody is your, is a child to you. No matter how many parties they belong to or wherever, they are your children. You can't pick one. Let your children pick the best one that is supposed to be. We're not supposed to be partisan, both covertly and overtly. We're supposed to be, that's what keeps the decency of that stool and that thing. So what that does basically is it allows the politicians to understand, because yes, you have concerns about who would be king. Let us sit down and discuss those concerns, but not infiltrate our ranks and put people on thrones who have no business being on thrones. You set us back, you break tradition, you break how we do things, and then it has consequences on the overall development and integration of the people. You split people, and people who are not united can't really produce much. So when they do all these things they do of putting somebody on the throne who is not his right, or you pick a ruling family to become the king now because you have people there, you destroy our fabric and what makes us who we are. You give us an identity crisis because we know how we do things before, and you've brought something into it. I'm an advocate of, look, let us sit down with you and say, what are your concerns about who becomes king? We will take those concerns back into our institution and we will resolve it. If you are saying you want people of integrity, people who are exposed, people who are educated, people who have character, we have a way of bringing that into the context of what we're doing to make sure that your concerns are followed, but we will still be the one to superintend who our kings are, who our chiefs are, and how we how we bring up those who lead us, so that at the end of the day, your concern of making sure that people of no integrity or disrepute come to the throne, and at the same time our own core need of preserving our culture and our heritage, is sacrosanct, and I think it's very key. So both sides need to go through a lot of reformation in the way they are interacting and in terms of engagement with each other.
Yeah, still speaking on that terrain, I think sometimes I fear that the same thing that has befallen the Nigerian in the political field is sometimes playing out, because there's been rumors during the COVID of certain discoveries, even under the monarch, under the traditional rulers, some things that were not ought to be. There are those who are greedy. I want to pick from the program you recently anchored, the Lagos Summit, where I had to listen to the Olowo of Warri that you just cited. I think for me, I like he's a young guy. I like what he's doing. I like his movements so far, from what I've seen from a distance, like you have enumerated here. But then something caught my attention. The Emir of Zauzau, when giving his speech, talked about his growing up in Lagos. That meant a different level of civilization and exposure that was supposed to, in my own context, differentiate his tenor. But again, I'm worried to the fact that as though he has spoken nicely, it was under his watch that the last administration, political administration, Kaduna State, where is his domain, became so turbulent, boiled so much that it almost, how do I put it? I'm looking for the right word now. That Kaduna became almost unbearable within that time. What was his role? What did he do? Was there something he would have done? Or is it just coming out to give us like the political manifesto that politicians come out and redo their election and promise you, if I not give you this in 24 hours, don't elect me again. And then the next year come, they are begging to say, or sometimes blaming the predecessor. Is the previous government. We inherited the problem, as they say. Is that what was his case? Or do you think they also, some of these royals also need to really go back, listen to what they've said, listen to what promises they've made, and know what is expected of them and step up to?
The question you're asking, points back to what I said initially. Now, knowing the emir you are talking about, one of the things we were talking about there was creating alternative dispute resolution systems where, encouraging people not to go to the courts but to come into the palace of the king, and the different setups there and committees to be able to resolve a lot of issues.
Yes,
and the fact that because of the religion practiced mostly in the north, gives the emir a lot of power in terms of that, and to be able to be somebody whose words are taken not lightly by his people. So you find that there's a lot of resolution happening in terms of judicial conversations and areas of conflict, and conflict resolution is a major issue. And even the when you find that kind of system working, even the government of those localities appreciate the fact that there's a lot of the violence and conflicts are being resolved, and those things are very key when you're talking about development. And there's a way it impacts on security when people know that that there's no animosity as a people between tribes, between localities, between environments. So there's a way that creates the atmosphere for development. But this is where I'm going back into now. If we're going to be audacious as Africans, what we need to understand and what we need to be doing, because when I get to sit down with monarchs, especially those who are technocrats and very advanced, like the emir you just listened to, there are people who are advocating that within the Nigerian construct, there should be a derivative coming straight to the royals. And we hear that in this whole, returning us back into, grassroots, empowering the, local government and everything, there's supposed to be a percentage of that money coming straight to the royals. Now, if we have a particular percentage of what comes to us in the, to royal institutions, and we have this rearrangement that we are talking about now for our constitutional rules to be returned to how they are supposed to be, especially in some key areas, and we have funding coming straight to us, and we have an accountability structure, we're also supposed to be creating systems where we are dealing with conversations of wealth creation, development, growth, and listening to issues of security. So there's a various degree of constitutional provided funding and constitutional provided roles. And I said that to say, so that if we allow us to use our grassroots intelligence and logistics to be able to look at these things, we will be able to solve a lot of problems locally. So if we had that kind of thing, I can tell you that such an emir, based on the fact that he's been the former ambassador before and he's played in various fields, of endeavors like telecommunications and banking and stuff like that, you will have that he can create systems of empowerment, of growth, of development within their own people that will not even allow them to come out and be talking about they want to riot, they want to do stuff. But because everybody has been, for lack of a better word, we have done very injustice to ourselves by decapacitating our royal institution and making us dependent like an appendage to the local government and stuff like that. It's one of the greatest undoing, because like we said, we're talking about the Olowo warrior and some other kings, like I said, the Shawn of Ogmosh and some other kings. There's the Orogunla as well, who we know he's doing an amazing thing with education, even sometimes himself going into the classrooms to teach and students and to buy them laptops and build schools and stuff like that. So it just shows that there are many of us, if we have that role restored and we have the funding coming, that we will create a system. And that's the system that happens in Ghana. That's the system that happens in South Africa, where the royal institution gets its money. So that's why you see that the king of the Zulus can do so much things in terms of not just development and growth and protecting the environment and creating, ecotourism and stuff like that, bringing development and growth and creating ecosystems of wealth to our people. It's something we need to be looking at, and I think Africa needs to be audacious enough to make this happen, and we believe it can work.
It's all right. Before we begin to wrap up, because our time is fast spent, you've been big in our conversation so far on the place of identity. And I understand it when you talk about the traditional level, the local, the grassroots level, okay, our culture, we have a little understanding of that. But when we bring it to the, I think I should say the macro level now, the federal level, do we have an identity for Nigerians?
Well, we've been trying to carve something out, but I think we're still far from it. You can't really tell somebody who is a Nigerian and you will be able to get him. And I think that's one of the challenges we had when we came into independence, where what we had were fathers of tribes. We didn't really have a father of the nation. Just like, you know, people like Lee Kuan Yew were able to do to their people,
Yes.
and people like Kwame Nkrumah were able to do to their people. We missed that opportunity to have a father that defines the essence of all of who we are, and what we had were those
Segmented.
who are segmented here. So it really has not allowed us to evolve into this is we have bits and pieces here that we
Yeah.
can put together,
Yeah.
but that main identity is what is missing. But in my own little way, I just believe that we as Nigerians, we are the epitome of the essence and capacity of Africa. That's what I would describe the Nigerian. He embodies the essence of what Africa is and the capacities that we entail. That's how I would describe us.
Okay.
In terms of who we are.
Let's take that for what it is for now until we are able to get something really, because it's something I've been asking this question for a couple of years now, and I really have not gotten maybe what I'm looking for or what I think Nigerians will really agree with. Like you said, at some point it speaks differently. So let me quickly come back to the place of faith. You've been a very practicing Christian. You've been, do I call it, a God ambassador in your own right and in your own. How easy has that been for you around the throne, practicing your Christianity? Because it is believed that monarchy, traditional rulership is either fetish or diabolic, or even both combined. I don't know if there's a better word to use. How true is that, first of all?
Well, like I said, when we started this conversation, it's what we have when we abandoned our responsibility as sons of God. And so we left, that space, even though, everything came from the fallen man arrangement. We got here by, the fallen man, having to go outside God and was making
Looking
covenants
for,
with spirits of the mountain and with, dimensions of the realms, and then how those, spirits became those that we look up to today as, the
Deities
demigods and the
and,
deities that we should, and there's no space that God does not want to redeem back to himself, to show us what the original plan is. And what God wants to do is for us to come back and track who we were originally and connect with him in the original conversation that we're having, and be able to walk our way back from there. So my going back, into our space is a God-inspired decision. I couldn't have come to it by myself. And when I went back into, okay, so what do we do? I don't know much about, this space the way I should know it. How do I find my way? So the Holy Spirit has been instrumental to leading me back to the history. And then obviously those issues come up of, it's a very fetish place, it's a very dark place and all that and everything. And so that's information you will get. But then God still wants to hold you by the hand and walk you through the process by himself, by his Spirit, and to open your eyes to see everything. And then again, what you now discover is that people just talk blanketly, and throw the baby with the bathwater, as well. It's everything that's considered. No, what you would discover is the fact that as God takes you by the hand, you will find absolutely amazing, beautiful things about the African people. You will find what is culture, that is just who we are as a people, the uniqueness of who we are, and then you will find that which is misinformed. Interaction which is where the dark side comes from. So you will not say everything is dark. You will now realize that there's your identity, there's your culture, there's your history, there's your language, there's the way you do things, the way you greet, the way you farm together, the way you used to do things. Those things are beautiful, about our food, our clothes, the way we marry, all those things. absolutely beautiful things. But then you now also realize that there's this other side that, the whole world made that. I mean, you go to Scandinavia, you hear, gods like Odin and the rest of them. So everybody has them. Question is, how is God walking us back to himself in the context of our history and our identity? So that was what helped me and is still helping me in this journey. And I realized that for as long as I'm being guarded by the Spirit of the living God in his word and in the prophecies he gave me, I'm finding favor where I go. I'm finding grace everywhere I go. He's giving me the wisdom and the knowledge to serve. He's helping me know what to do when I engage, when I encounter those situations and their victories,
For time's sake, permit me to cut you a little bit of cutting. I would like you to give your final words to someone watching right now and who is a Christian in a political office or in a particular leadership position. What would be your thoughts? What would be your counsel for them? What do you think you would want to let them know if you had the privilege of being with them in a short while, to give them an encouragement or maybe to give them a hope or redirect their course? What would be your words, your final words for them?
What I would say to anybody who is in royalty or the governance or politics is to say, go, make sure that you and God are on the same page. Make sure you understand who you are in God. Make sure that you go through that process of reconnecting yourself with God and realizing that where you are is, is an assignment from God, is your identity from God. It's not something you're doing to do anybody a favor. That is your life. That is who you are. And that you will give account for that life. And the best thing you want to do, basically, as a son of God in that space, you know that what God has put you there is to serve his own purpose. So you need to go to that God, download that purpose of God, and then understand that you are stewarding that space for God. And that the only person that can guide you is the person that sent you on that errand. And then to also know that he will be with you and he would stay with you and he will walk you through that process. So what you just need to do is to come into complete alignment with God. Obviously with prayer, with intercession, as God will guide you. And then obviously you can't rule away the issue of having a prayer team that prays with you, because it's a very interesting journey. So a prayer team, and then also prayerfully consider someone who has gone ahead to also mentor you. But ultimately, your help is from the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit is more than enough for you. And to also know that no matter how Herculean what is in front of you looks or sounds, God always wins. God always wins.
Thank you. God always wins. That will be the much we'll be able to take today on this episode of Christians in Politics. I hope you've been well educated and well informed that no matter what, no matter where you are, God is still interested in getting every aspect of our life, every aspect of our leadership, every aspect of our engagement, and is ready whenever you're ready to come back to him, to give you guidance, support, and to lead you. It's been a wonderful time talking to Omooba, Deji, Irawo. Thank you so very much for coming on the show, and thank you for sharing your thoughts with us and your encouragement for those who are in these offices. Thank you very much, sir.
Pleasure.
All right, thank you. Until I come your way again, I remain yours, William C. Loho, signing out for today.